Welcome to Krome Cast, Tech It Out. I'm Sam Major, Commercial Director for Krome Technologies. I'm joined once again by Doug Elsley, Microsoft Practice Lead.
Hi.
So Doug, talking about Intune Device Management, and as is the format, if you can give us the three things that you and I are going to focus on today.
Sure. So why Intune? Why now? Why are we talking about it? We'll have a conversation about that because Intune's been around for a long time. We'll cover the demo of Intune that we've got, and then probably go back into some licensing and just other considerations around Intune and some of the development around it. So
cool. So let's start at the top of that then. It's obviously been around a while. It's not new. So why Intune? Why now?
I guess the inflection point of the end of life of Windows 10 and the potential of people having to upgrade to another operating system.
Yeah.
So it's that choice to do I change the way that I do things today? So if I'm managing with Configuration Manager or if I've got machines joined to an on-premise domain, do I start looking at cloud delivery options using Entra, using Intune, MDM Mobile Device Management, that they do probably today with their phones and their tablets. Why not do it with their desktop devices and laptops if they're going? And again, maybe laptop refreshes at that point. So if you're going through an operating system build, you maybe get new hardware. Let's provision it in a different way.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And you know, it's good of you to assume that everyone's organised and is on Windows 11 already. You know who you are. Some of our guys out there are still, waiting to get that done because it can be a challenge. And actually, you are right though. It is that kind of there's a paradigm shift almost in the management of it and what you can do. And I've seen your demo. You're in for a treat. It's very comprehensive, and it never fails to impress me. Actually, it's an enormous suite nowadays. In the years it's been out, they've obviously added to it and it's grown. But it's not when you stop and really dig into it, how much there is to it now and what you can do with it.
Yeah, it is big. And when you watch a demo, if you want to sort of go at 0.75 speed, because I do try and rattle through things, but as I said, we've got that other masterclass session where we'll sort of step back a little bit and do it a little bit slower. But yeah, it's grown over the years. I think people that had Configuration Manager when it first came out weren't that worried about it. A couple of years later, when it started getting more features, then they went, oh, hang on a second, and then they started questioning Microsoft. Are you still investing in Configuration Manager? And so that duality between them, and now sort of Intune has moved into that first place spot. So it can do a lot and connects us out to other operating systems, things like ServiceNow, Jamf, TeamViewer. There's a lot of connectors that go out, and it's not just around Windows anymore as well. So yeah, there's a lot to cover in these demos.
Perfect. And that's actually, you mentioned it, and it's worth mentioning to the audience, is the Masterclass.
Yeah.
So in November, this is a comprehensive demo and Doug does go at quite a speed. It's a lot to digest. So if you'd like to take some more time with us to really dig into Intune and what you can do with it, then please do join Doug on the Masterclass because it will be very in-depth and an opportunity to pose questions and be slightly interactive. So that is in November, but right now we've got a very comprehensive demo to dig into. So let's throw it over to Doug with Doug's demo.
Lots of things to talk about and get through. And mainly you'll be working, and when you're using it and configuring it, you'll be working in the devices section. So per operating system, there are configurations and settings that are relevant to each of those operating systems. So for instance, if I drive into Windows, these are the Windows devices. And then you have things like configuration management. These are policies, much like group policies, but this is MDM, so it's mobile device management. Actually push these policies out, so you could have VPN, Wi-Fi profiles, BitLocker profiles, endpoint protection through Defender for Endpoint. Or you could literally just go set the Windows background and lock screen. So all the things that you would normally do with inside group policy, you can do that and a whole lot more with inside using these policies. You can also import ADMX files. So if you've got an existing group policy configuration, you can import it in and it will find the right policies that match with inside Intune, and again, automatically help you in getting those configured correctly. So that's the configuration. So that's making sure that the operating system and applications are built in the right way. You then have compliance, and compliance is, okay, I need this machine for this instance. If I just look at this policy quickly, I need that all of my machines, that when they log in, they have got the firewall set up, they've got a TPM, AVs running properly, anti-spyware, anti-malware, etc. And then if any of these fail, then the device is not compliant. And then I can then choose what non-compliance means, to whether I let them in or I only let them into certain areas to maybe get their email, but they can't get into SharePoint, by using conditional access and then using compliance policies around conditional access. So all of these settings are available for each of the operating systems. Obviously a little bit different per operating system, but the configuration the same. So if you've got an iOS device, you can disable the game center. Is it allowed to back up into the cloud using Google or Apple, or do you want your data to stay just on the device and within inside SharePoint or OneDrive? You can control that so it doesn't go to Dropbox, etc. All of those kind of policies you can build inside here. Also, I won't cover it today because it's been covered before in a couple of sessions by other people. Conditional access, and again, making sure that you are who you say you are, that is the right device and the device is in the right configuration and it's working. The same thing goes for applications. So you can see that it's all broken down per application. So you can see here, if we go to iOS applications, here inside, you can see the applications themselves. And you have the ability to create these applications very quickly. I'll show you how to go and do an iOS application. So we're just going from the store. You have to obviously configure connections to stores and the Play Store. So you can just search the App Store and just search for Microsoft. And then it'll find all the applications that are Microsoft applications. And then you can just say, okay, I want to add Teams. And then you then select Teams. And that's the app that's going to be deployed down to, in this case, the iOS devices. And then you define which group or users' devices. So you can either have it pushed down to them all the time, or you can also have it available to them in what's called the company portal. So this is a self-service portal where they're able to download their own applications and install them on demand and remove them if you allow them to go and do that as well. So it's very, very simple to set these policies and applications up and have them available for all of these devices. So that's, again, that's for iOS. We can have a look through Windows. You can see that I've got Adobe Cloud, the company portal application, Adobe Reader, the M365 app, so that would be Teams, Word, PowerPoint, etc. So each of the operating systems has their own version of this. And then each of them also have the ability to have their own protection. So here we can do things like DLP, stopping copy and paste, stopping screen recording, stopping screenshots. All of that can be done where you can't move information from a corporate application into a personal application. So all of that power can be delivered with inside here. Again, much too much to cover in a simple overview today, but it should just give you an idea of exactly what's going on with inside there. Next level down is really around endpoint security. This looks holistically across, again, it's not just Windows, this looks holistically across all of the applications and allows you to set configurations and settings. So for instance, for Windows, you've got security baselines. So these are either government issued baselines or Microsoft best practice. And this is a framework where you can literally say, right, I'll take all of these policies, I'll make some changes to make it look like my environment, or I don't quite agree with that, or I want to add a little bit more to that. And then you can literally look at these baselines. And these baselines, as we saw before, have configurations, policies against them. So if I go and look at these very, very quickly, if I go and edit these settings, I can quickly see for browser configuration, for instance, how they got the browser set up, what they got set up for Defender, what have they got set up for Device Guard. So these configurations, you can either take advantage of what's set up for Wi-Fi, what's the best way of doing that, blocking a connection to hotspots. So this looks exactly pretty much like group policy. You can see the configurations inside here, but these are some pre-built templates that you can use and then drop onto your devices should you want to go and use those on the devices to build the policies and enable those. So nice and simple to have them, and good to have a starting point to work around. But you can build your own, as we saw earlier with inside devices, those policies for VPN, for Wi-Fi, etc. You can build your own anyway. AV is centralized with inside here. So if you have got Defender, you may have been missing a nice portal and configuration where you can look at reports and understand the status of all your clients and the AV and the updates to all the pattern files. This now gives you that. It used to be directly and only available with inside Config Manager, but now you have all of this with inside Intune. So it's not just around Windows. So you can see that macOS putting that information directly into here. There are connectors to go out to other AV vendors. I'll cover that maybe in the tenant administration. If not, go into tenant administration, and there are mobile threat vendors where you can actually go and connect into those other vendors and use them as well. So lots of information around sort of unhealthy endpoints and malware detection, reusable settings. This I've not covered in the reports. This is just an overview session to look at that. Disk encryption, things like BitLocker. Have you got it configured? USB drive lockdowns, whether you want to have it stopping and only encrypting a USB device if you copy something to it. Again, settings like that. And also BitLocker encryption of your devices and things like BitLocker key rotation that we'll see with inside the device as well. Lots of things in here. I'm not going to have enough time to cover them all today. Just to let you know that these things are available and configurable inside here. Also, from a reporting point of view, whole loads of reports. Most of the areas, so you see around group policy, device configuration, etc. You'll spend most of your time around sort of things like endpoint analytics and looking at your machines and benchmarking them against other organizations or setting yourself a baseline. And this will be around simple things like how quickly does my machine start up? What's my app reliability like? So if I go to startup performance, for instance, I can go and look at individual devices and I can see, does an SSD or an NVMe run much quicker than a normal machine, or have I got issues with group policy because my startup time's really quickly, but actually getting to my desktop is really slow? How many restarts, how many crashes? So again, lots of reports and information inside here, including the ability to analyze your system to see if it's Windows 11 capable. And if it's not, what the reasons are. So is it CPU? Is it memory? Is it a trusted platform module? So it tells you why these machines are not capable of running them. Lots of information inside here. Let's dive back and let's start looking at some of the devices and see if we can start getting some enrollments done. As we've been talking about this, let's dive into things like Autopilot. So this is based around enrollment. And you can see here there are enrollments for Apple, Android, these other devices, again, plugging into either Business Manager or Android for Work. You can have all of these things and configurations done and policies pushed down. So the connectors into all of those environments as well. But we're going to quickly look through things like something like Autopilot. Hopefully it's been discussed already. We're not going to recover what that is. But here you can see where I'm building Autopilot profiles, for instance. So this is what happens when the machine logged in. So when you get this UBI out of the box experience, when you first power on a machine, you do simple things like configure keyboards, terms and conditions, is it a standard account or administrator account, those sort of things, and also being able to give names for machines or branding for machine that's based on the company. So it could be serial number, random number on the end of it, however you want to go and do it all. So these are a basic profile that you can assign out to different environments. And then also, when you've got those profiles, you're able to import your machines in so they can be Autopilot enabled. And the benefit of having something Autopilot enabled is enables you to pretty much deploy the machine without a user having too much interaction with the end of it. You can actually have it without any interaction, or you can minimize it the best you can. And the best part is something like Krome or Dell or HP. If you've been buying new devices, you can get a CSV file, which basically will have all of the identities and these serial numbers that are generated by the vendors and Microsoft and approved together. These are very large serial numbers, not normal ones, and allow you to import it. And then also with these devices, you can see here that I've got this Surface laptop inside here. Not only have I imported it into the company, so I can build it, and then as it gets powered on, it will say, welcome to Contoso, please enter your username and your password. It will go through the rest of the build for the user, put their applications down, etc. But I can also assign them directly to a user. So it doesn't just come up and say, welcome to Contoso. It will actually come up and say, welcome Adele. and then, or welcome Megan, or whoever it is, they can log in as part of that practice. Having the enrollments already set up and configured is the best way of doing that. As I kind of showed before, I've got lots of virtual machines here. I've also got a machine here that's a physical machine, and then I've also got an iOS device that we're going to try and enroll a bit later on as well. We can flip between them, and then we can also show other things while having the screens open with those devices so you can see what's going on. So I may have to cut bits out from a timing point of view just as the machines build, but I won't cut anything of importance out, and I'll tell you how long that process took. And it's also interesting just to cover those. So we've got some macOS devices in here, some iOS devices as we talked about. But as you go into these devices themselves, you can see that if I have the machine that's already been enrolled, I've got the ability to wipe or autopilot reset or collect diagnostics, restart them, sync them, also rotate BitLocker key rotations, lapse, local admin password resets, all sorts of very powerful tools that you have with inside here, and also information about the devices themselves, the hardware, Resource Explorer. So we won't spend too much time in here, but as you dive into the machines and as you look into the machines as you have them enrolled, there's more information available just around that. So let's try and get one on board. It's a physical machine to show you what's going on. So again, you can skip these areas if you want to. So if you know what language you want all your machines to be built in, then you can actually build a policy in a group that just has that particular setting within inside it. Because obviously you have to go and join a network. Once you've got that in, you've gone through that process, it's automatically going to go and check for updates. And interestingly, what it's doing here, so when this out-of-the-box experience happens, it's also checking with Microsoft to see, when we looked earlier at the configurations for having Autopilot and that serial number registered against the tenant, then this is going to check against that. This machine is just rebooted, so it's just gone through that first phase and it's checked with Microsoft and says, actually, I'm a registered device to an organization, so I need to go down and pull this policy. As you can see here is an example of what I was saying earlier. When you're using Autopilot and you assign a device to a user, I've literally gone through the out-of-the-box experience from a brand new machine, and it's come straight up with Megan. So this machine was assigned to Megan, so it's going to go and pull Megan's settings, policies, configuration, and applications, everything that she has will be used on this one. So if I log in with Megan's details, we should then go through and then go through an MFA response. Okay, so if we give the authorization for the MFA code, that's going to take us on to the next step. As I said, all of this has been pre-provisioned. So now what this is doing is actually going out, looking at all the policies and the configurations that we were talking about earlier. Then you can see now it's now logging in for the user. So the users had their device delivered to them. It's been either pre-built or delivered directly from the factory. They've literally taken the machine out of the box, and what's happened as part of that process is it's now been enrolled in the organization. It's now had all the applications pushed down to it, and all the policies and configurations for that particular user and that device has been pushed down. So it's just doing the final part here as it goes through, working on the last part on the user's account and the policies around that. Here you can see the user has now been either using Windows Hello so they can set up their biometrics. We're using a PIN just to log in. That's then set up and configured for the user. They're all ready to go. Very, very quickly, you can see exactly how that machine was built in the background, delivered down to the users. It's been configured with corporate applications and corporate profiles, security, everything that you need that should go around that. And then also the user themselves, you will see that they've got a company portal. So the applications have been installed, but also this user can now go to a company portal and they can see other applications if they haven't had them pre-provisioned for their role. You can see the applications inside here. It will just go back and list all the applications. So if I wanted to go and get Adobe Reader, for instance, I could just go and click on Adobe Reader and then hit install. And you can see in the background, Teams is all loaded up for me. I'm ready to go as a user, configurations, but basically I'm back in and working. So that's taken 4.5 minutes to build that machine from plugging it into the network and going through that process, just to go through, check any updates, install the policies, the information around it all, and now we've got a working user that's got a machine that's delivered down to the other end. And I can reset this and rebuild this. So the beauty of Autopilot is if there are machine issues, they tend to be software related. You can just go into the console itself and just rebuild it if you wanted to. So in this main console, as we talked about before, if I just refresh that, you'll start to see that that machine probably is being pulled in. So that's that machine here that's literally just come in. So it's going through its evaluation process, but I still have the ability to wipe and retire it. So if I do have a support issue with that machine, I can just rebuild it remotely. I haven't got to go out, send them another machine. So nice and easy. So we'll stop this one and then we'll have a look at iOS and have a look at an iPhone in a second. We've got an iPhone here that a user has as a personal device. All they need to do is download and install that company portal application. You can see there, this user has already installed the company portal just for speed and make sure that you can see it all. It's just a quick download from the store. Basically, when they go in, they log in with their credentials, and it's now saying, do you want to set up and be configuring this device application? So this tells you what it can and what it can't do. So it lets the users know exactly what the process is. So we can just go and continue that, hit continue. So now what it's going to do is it's going to ask me to log in. And again, I'm going to go through MFA. So that's going to go through and get approved. Now I've logged in. It's now going to go and pull that management profile down. We hit allow, and that's now going to download in the background. What I need to do is actually jump out here, general VPN and management. And then inside here, you can see that that management profile is now ready to be have it installed. So, so it's going to install that management profile, pulling down a certificate, finishing off the profile, trusting that relationship directly with Intune configuration. You can see that the management profile is now connected to Contoso. So I can now go back to this company portal. So this is now pushing some applications down in the background. So yes, I did do the profile. You can see here it's now pushing down Outlook. So these are the applications that are the default for these users. So it's just going to check this device to make sure that it hasn't got a jailbreak on it and it passes all of the security verifications that we want it to go through. So now that's done. Perfect. So you can see that this is this device. I'm able to remove it or factory reset this device if I wanted to. So it's now going back and just confirming that everything is good. I also have access to, again, like we were seeing before, all of those applications. So I can just download the applications that I want to go and download. I can just literally hit on OneDrive and hit install. But I've got a couple of applications that have already been pushed down to this. So before we didn't have Authenticator or Outlook. So Outlook has now been installed. So again, I can just launch Outlook as part of this process, add an account. It knows because of my profile that it's been done from a corporate point of view. I can just add this account in. It's now saying my organization is protecting its data. So it's stopping me using things like copy and paste. So it's just going to restart the application. And you'll notice that when I go back into the application, it's going to ask me for a password before I can go into my corporate data. So I've got to unlock my phone, and now I've got to unlock my corporate data. So I'll just put this easy one in, just turn on these and have these on, that's fine. So here you can see my inbox. So here's a payroll email. If I try and grab this may have some very sensitive information in it. If I copy that, all I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back out and I'm going to go and find a new note. And then inside here, I'm going to try and paste it. And you can see here that it's now blocked me from pasting my organization data with inside my work app into my personal apps. And the same goes as if I was trying to save to Dropbox or trying to save to an iCloud environment, I would have controls that would stop that from happening. So that's the demo today. I've just gone through and show you exactly what Intune is. Very quick run through. As I said, it very, very deep topic, as you can probably appreciate. We're doing the bigger run through later on, but hopefully that's given you a really good insight into some of the capabilities that you can do with inside Intune.
Brilliant, Doug. It's fast. Yeah. We know that. And if you do want to dig into it again, do not forget the masterclass. It's so powerful, and it's just the little things you can do there. The ending with the DLP bit that you did, just another function that it's got, and it's the whole Microsoft thing, isn't it? Of there are other third parties that can do that bit, but Microsoft have just added it to another tool that you've already got in this licensing package, and as they slowly take over the world and give you everything you need to run IT.
Yeah, they'll always give you probably, like, they're a platform company, right? So you get 80%, there's always 20% that other vendors do over and above. But I didn't show it in there because I couldn't record the screen demo, so you can stop it recording, you can stop it doing screenshots. You know, if you do a screenshot of data, it ends up just being a black image, pasting corporate data into personal applications. So that whole DLP side of it has been around for a long time. It's been with inside Windows, it's going inside other operating systems like Android and iOS and obviously macOS as well. So can do a lot. But protection of data is key.
Of course it is.
And especially enrolling personal devices, making sure that corporate data isn't being lost outside the company.
Absolutely, yeah.
Not even just from a copy and paste point of view, but also that we talked about it in the demo, not being able to save to Dropbox or not being able to save to external resources, and you can only save to your OneDrive or save them to SharePoint. So, incredibly powerful, but we'll do some more of that on the masterclass.
Perfect. And then I allude to it there is obviously the way Microsoft will keep feeding in tools into their licensing packages. It'd be good if we can just cover off some, licensing and any other considerations that people may have around this.
Yeah, so Intune, as most people are probably aware, you're looking at the E3, E5 SKUs from an M365 point of view. You can buy it standalone, so there's an enterprise and mobility security suite, or you can buy an Intune. There are also add-ons, so there's a remote viewer connector that you can buy. There's a suite that includes all of them, but you can also buy them individually. There's a VPN, so you can actually add on a VPN to Apple and Android devices. I didn't show that in that, but we'll cover it in the masterclass as well. Incredibly powerful because you can do it per app as well. So even if when you open up an app, it then kicks in a VPN automatically in the background. So again, for personal joint devices, very important. Some more reporting and some other connectors around making sure the elevation of privilege management. So there are some add-ons, there are some connectors. We talked about Jamf and a few others as well. So lots in there to take into consideration when you're looking at licensing.
Cool. And as with Microsoft, I find it a bit of a dark art. You're a complete whiz with it. If anyone watching this is thinking about what licensing and so on, obviously Doug is available as a resource, so he's happy to speak to anyone about should you be E3, should you be E5, what's included in those packages, what can you leverage, because we do often find kind of people not necessarily on the wrong licensing plan, but under leveraging what they've got. So it's Doug is a tremendous resource as well. Obviously, if you've watched the demo, you understand, knows what he's talking about. But obviously, Microsoft is quite a big and sometimes unwieldy beast, and you can help people navigate that path. So
and I think as you're right, most of the purchasing decisions are done by the finance people in the last closure. So sometimes the people that get the product don't actually know how much they've got inside the product. They just know they've got Intune, or they know they've got Purview, or whatever it is. And then you go into the nuances underneath that, and actually there's a lot of power. And it stops people buying third-party products when you understand the capabilities. Again, that 80-20 rule is, does this do enough of what you need to do, and do you need that specialization, that last mile on the product? Lots of considerations around that.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Doug.
That's all right.
And I was about to say thank you for joining us, but I'll say it once again before you go. Masterclass with Doug in November. Please do register. We have a whole bunch of these coming up, but Doug, nearly called you Mike then. Doug is doing this in November. So thanks again for joining us and enjoying this episode of Krome Cast. If there's anything else you'd like us to cover, leave it in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share, and join us next time on Krome Cast. Check it out.